This is the Troll Patrol, live with Justin Freakin.
Welcome to the Troll Patrol Live. It's a freaking Tuesday, and boy, do I have a doozy of a fucking show for you. That news be doing all kinds of crazy shit today. Clinically, Warlord, good evening. I'm not exactly sure what hospital story you're referring to. I don't remember a hospital, but maybe there was one, who knows. Lenny, good evening. Stop trying to step on my dick. Rocky, good evening. You run Discord, I don't. I got off the stream last night, and I was like, I've still got Netflix. I'll go back, I'll watch Raw. And the quality was so bad. The screen was so pixelated that I could not watch it. I attempted to watch Penta. I listened to CM Punk's promo. That's about all I could sit through. Flash, good evening. Rebel Ridge. I feel like you've said that before. I feel like I had to put a moratorium on you saying Rebel Ridge. Did that happen, or did I just dream that? And if you've never mentioned it before in the chat, just ignore me. No, I watched that Jerry Springer documentary. That sounds like something I'd do in the freaking news, Warlord. As if the shit that I have for you, like, that's good, but I don't think it can compare to a teacher arrested with cocaine in her 6th grade classroom. I don't think it can compare to a woman getting upset and getting a worker fired at a Burger King for getting a side of marijuana with her chicken fries. The Kansas State House banned journalists. The Minnesota House was half empty as I believe it was Democrats. Maybe it was Republicans. I don't even know what's going on. We're going to find out. Is DJ Dub in here? What the fuck is going on in Minnesota? I thought we were watching the most contentious hearing that took place today on Capitol Hill. No, apparently Nancy Mace and Jasmine Crockett almost took it outside. There's like a 30-second clip going around on Twitter, but you know me, I love this shit, so I went and found the whole goddamn thing. Joe Biden being slammed over his removal of Cuba from a terrorist list. Meanwhile, 2 prisoners that he gave commutation to that was on death row are asking for their commutations to be waived. They want to return to death row. They're saying, fuck Brandon. They want to go back to death row. A ceasefire is apparently imminent, coming any second now. However, the Netanyahu government has held an emergency meeting within the last couple of hours. Elon Musk could be buying TikTok, but breaking news within the last couple of hours, Elon Musk being sued by the SEC. And earlier today, we watched the confirmation hearing for Department of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. I made a comment. I said, is that Megyn Kelly back there? And everyone in the chat told me that was not Megyn Kelly. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm face blind. I don't know people. Guess fucking what? It was Megyn Kelly. I was right. Somehow, some way, I was right. Not all blonde women look alike. It actually was Megyn Kelly, and I'm going to prove it, all that and a lot freaking more tonight on the Troll Patrol live. Good evening. I'm not even high, Warlord. Not even high. Transphobes looking at trans porn. What do you mean you're not high, Justin? I took a nap after I got off stream. Got up, did a little work, made dinner, put the show together. Haven't gotten high. So you know what that means. Light one up, tip one back. Thank you to Redolent Thought, Niggy for the raids this morning, Majority Report for the shout out. Every time Majority Report gives me a shout out, I get a couple more followers. I appreciate that. A lot of people came over from Redolent Thought this morning and hung out with us. Hell of a lot of fun. Right as we were getting off stream, Mel Rights USA followed me. So I can imagine what that account is like. Maybe perhaps it's a satire account, but I'm kind of doubting it. I tagged a lot of dipshits on Twitter and Facebook that have been arguing with me. I had these guys just pop up out of nowhere. I don't even know who these fucks are. This anti-racist cop on Twitter. I don't know who he is or how I triggered him, but he just keeps tagging me in things, and he says he thinks a lot of people are me. I don't know how this works. He thinks that me and several other accounts are all the same person, and it's multiple alts, but I only have the one Twitter account. I would tell you guys if I've only had the one Twitter account ever until until I got banned in 2016, 2017. And yeah, he keeps tagging me, and there's 5 people that like all his tweets. Within seconds, it seems like they're all the same person. It's blowing my mind. It's really weird, but I keep getting tagged in shit. And I have no idea what these people are talking about. I'm barely even, I'm online, but I'm not online. I'm just as oblivious on social media as I am, as you can imagine I am from my personality here. No idea what's going on. So, I get tagged in this shit, and I'm like, the fuck are you guys talking about? You're all dumb fucks. And I barely, I get on Twitter 2 or 3 times a day. I don't know. It's a good source of funny videos for the show. I should probably get on it more. I should probably get on TikTok more. People are all like, TikTok's wonderful. TikTok taught me this. TikTok told me about these crackers that are awesome. TikTok. All my friends are TikTok. Send me TikToks all the goddamn time. Apparently, I woke up the other morning, half asleep, and went on a Facebook rant about TikTok. Woke back up in the afternoon and saw people laughing at the... Yeah, I can't download Red Note on my computer because I've devoted myself to being on all the social media apps from their beginnings, right? Put my shit everywhere I can get it. That way, if it takes off somewhere. So I'm like, RedTube. I totally want to be on RedTube. I'll download RedTube and put all my shit on there. And apparently, I don't know how to work RedTube. Went down a rabbit hole on that one. You kids and your weird social media sites. Also didn't seem very Chinese. Well, the big news tonight is that Israel and Hamas have both agreed in principle to a ceasefire. Torchy, good evening.
We're following developing news out of the Middle East tonight. Sources tell CBS News that both Israel and Hamas have agreed in principle to a ceasefire and hostage deal. CBS News foreign correspondent Ramy Inocencio is in Tel Aviv with more.
CBS News has learned from U.S., Israeli, and Arab officials that the draft for a ceasefire and hostage deal has been agreed to in principle. And if it all carries on smoothly, then Israel and Hamas will finalize it this week. Today, an Israeli government official here in Tel Aviv who wants to be anonymous told us the outlines of that deal. In phase one, Hamas would release 33 hostages made up of women, the elderly, the sick, and some children in exchange for a higher number of Palestinian detainees in Israeli prisons. As for Israel's military presence in Gaza, that official said that assets, which we're understanding to mean military assets, would remain in Gaza, and that the IDF would establish a security buffer zone between southern Gaza and Israel. And as for the people of Gaza, humanitarian aid, which we know is so desperately needed now, especially at the height of winter, would be surged. The latest number we have on the death toll is over 46,500 people. That just crossed the 46,000 mark only last week. Pushing ahead to phase two, talks on that would start during phase one, and with the goal of releasing younger hostages and Israeli soldiers. But first, of course, phase one has to be agreed. If it does, implementation could start this weekend, with hostages starting to be released. The last time that happened was more than a year ago, but a reminder, we have been here before many times. Talks could collapse at any minute. Many are cynical, but again, one more time, there is that feeling of hope, and that official says in large part because of the U.S. and the double backing of the outgoing Biden White House and the incoming Trump White House. Back to you.
Come on, man.
Ramy Inocencio, thank you. CBS News national security contributor Sam Vinograd joins us now for some analysis. Sam, great to see you. So we've been reporting for months now of these stalled negotiations and that they could be on the horizon here. But I'm curious, what happened in Qatar to actually get to where we stand today?
Well, there certainly is a sense of deja vu as we hope that we're on a precipice of a ceasefire and hostage release negotiation. I think certain factors have materially changed. In the first instance, Bibi Netanyahu has had more time to try to accomplish his military objectives in Gaza. Previously, a sticking point has been Bibi Netanyahu insisting on the complete decimation of Hamas, while the U.S. administration has pointed out their view that he had accomplished his military objectives there. There was a difference there. Further, Hamas has been very focused on ensuring that Israel withdraws from some key strategic areas known as the Philadelphia corridor and some other buffer zones in parts of Gaza. Israel now seems to have backed off their insistence regarding those territories, likely again because Netanyahu feels that he's accomplished more of his military objectives. Netanyahu is under even more increased pressure domestically, and we do have the Trump factor here. I don't think that Prime Minister Netanyahu makes decisions solely based on what Donald Trump has to say, but Donald Trump has been pressuring Netanyahu both directly and through his Middle East envoy to be Steve Witkoff to make a
apparently made Netanyahu his bitch. We're going to get into that.
Biden and Netanyahu agree on. And so their two envoys, Brett McGurk and Steve Witkoff, have been working in very close concert to try to get this job done.
Yeah, it's really notable how well those teams have been working together. I mean, Steve Witkoff has, commended the Biden administration for how they're including them in these negotiations. You heard Ramy kind of lay out these three different stages of this plan. I'm wondering what your biggest takeaways are.
Well, if history is prologue, we know that phase one, hopefully we get to phase one and we see the release of 33 Israeli hostages, including women and children, as well as other male hostages at some juncture. But if we can just get to phase one, that is a major accomplishment, both in terms of the Israeli hostages and in terms of allowing more aid in. That is part of the phase one agreement. However, the last time we were here, we got through phase one and never got to a phase two. And so it is quite possible that we do see a hostage release, prisoner release, additional aid in for some period of weeks.
She worked at DHS.
Other conditions under phase one, but
I do not like this woman for some reason.
That would be an improvement upon where we are today, as the people of Gaza are starving, and Israeli hostages have been in captivity for just far too long.
And since we seem to be closer to a deal than we ever have before, I'm wondering what kinds of things you're looking at that could derail this altogether.
Well, I think it is clear, an important factor here on the Israeli side is that this is not a deal that President-elect Trump would pull back from once inaugurated on Monday. So the Israelis know that they would have both the Biden administration support and President-elect Trump support. What could derail this deal is if the ceasefire that is supposed to be in effect for 6 weeks in phase one is derailed by either Hamas or other terrorist group action against Israel during this 6-week period, or if Israel launches military incursions into Gaza.
That's a more likely scenario.
Humanitarian assistance is not allowed in to the degree that Israel pledges it would. So there are a lot of factors that could throw this off, but importantly, in the very first days of this deal, we would already see hostages released in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. So even that would be an improvement from an Israeli perspective from where we are today. And hopefully more aid would get in very quickly as well to help the people of Gaza.
Yes, we are all hoping for some kind of deal to go.
Holiday, Prometheus, DJ Dub. Good evening, my friends. Welcome in. We're covering the apparent imminent ceasefire. Hamas and Israel have agreed to it in principle. But apparently, Netanyahu held an emergency meeting of officials earlier today.
Turning now to the Middle East, and negotiators met today in Doha, moving toward finalizing a plan for a ceasefire and hostage release. According to the Qatari government, Israel and Hamas are close to an agreement. President Biden said on Monday that a deal was on the brink of fruition. Israeli and Hamas officials also expressed optimism over the negotiations. Earlier today, in a fireside chat, it was hosted by the Atlantic Council, we heard from the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, who said that the U.S., Qatar, and Egypt put forward a final proposal, and it is now up to Hamas to accept the deal. I want to get right to NBC News Chief Foreign.
I'm pretty sure Hamas had already accepted
in the region
and had accepted the deal over and over and over again
Richard,
in the last 2 years.
There's a sense that this could happen within days, maybe even hours. How close are we to an agreement?
I'm sorry, year and some change.
Well, until we have an agreement, we don't have one, but all indications remain positive. In fact, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tonight held what was described by an Israeli official as an urgent meeting with top defense officials in this country. Already several Israeli government ministers have been commenting on the deal as if it is going to happen, some expressing support, some expressing opposition, but it does seem to be going forward. And Israeli officials have also been briefing journalists in private about what the deal, if it does get signed, might look like. And it is a multi-phase, or it would be a multi-phase deal with initially a ceasefire, 48-hour ceasefire, followed by the release by Hamas of 33 hostages in batches over 42 days. The initial hostages being the most critical cases, those that are injured or elderly, children, and that if that is successful, it'll be followed by the release of all of the remaining hostages. Israel believes that there are 98 hostages still alive in Gaza, and that in exchange, Israel would free hundreds of Palestinian prisoners, pull out of populated areas in Gaza, but retain a buffer zone. Those are the broad outlines as being described by Israeli officials, and Israeli and U.S. officials say that Hamas, however, has yet to agree to it, so nothing has been implemented. But
whoa, no, Hamas has agreed.
Saying that this is the closest that they have been to a hostage release and ceasefire deal in months.
And
this was just posted a few hours ago. Hamas agreed this morning.
They spoke about the real concern, the sense of urgency here that a lot of these hostages are not in good shape right now, that they need their release immediately.
No doubt. It's been 15 months, and some of the hostages were injured during their initial capture. A lot of them have been held primarily underground in tunnels. Some of these tunnels are extraordinarily cramped. Journalists have had the opportunity on visits by the Israeli army to visit some of these tunnels. They are extremely dark, freezing cold. It's an area, all of Gaza is under attack. The people just living in Gaza are experiencing extraordinary hardship that would be even more difficult for the hostages themselves. So yes, for the hostage families, there is this sense of optimism right now, but also with that optimism comes nervousness. Once you start to believe that maybe they're going to come out, you want them to come out soon. You don't want something to happen in the last moment. Part of that is human nature, and part of that is they've seen this before. We have gotten close to hostage deals in the past, only to see sometimes the hostages killed in the very last minute. So an incredibly difficult time.
This was supposed to be about the emergency meeting Netanyahu held.
Being built up. And with that comes increased.
That was the juicy details I wanted.
Yep. Our prayers for them, for the families, for all of those impacted by this awful war. Richard Engel on the ground for us in Jerusalem tonight. Richard, thank you. I know you keep us posted if we learn any new details over the course of the next several hours.
Yeah, Dick.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the...
Shut up, Lester.
Or follow it.
I referenced it earlier this morning. I looked at the story after I got off stream last night. That's where I was. Might have to eat my words after last night's rant about what was and wasn't going to happen. Apparently, the incoming Trump administration made Netanyahu their bitch, and in the process made Joe Biden looked like a bitch. Here is Ryan Grimm, who took to TikTok. This is his first TikTok ever. Just days before it gets shut down.
All right, so since TikTok isn't banned yet, I'm going to do a second one. I wanted to make sure everybody over here...
Oh, I'm sorry, this is the second one.
Haaretz article about how the ceasefire deal is being pushed through. So this is exactly what they write. I want to make sure it's on the record over here. Last Friday evening, Stephen Witkoff, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's Middle East envoy, called from Qatar to tell Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's aides that he would be coming to Israel the following afternoon. The aides politely explained that was in the middle of the Sabbath, but that the Prime Minister would gladly meet him Saturday night. Witkoff's blunt reaction took them by surprise. He explained to them in salty English that Shabbat was of no interest to him. His message was loud and clear. Thus, in an unusual departure, blah, 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 he said, we're meeting. They met. He forced him to take the deal. We have always said a deal was possible. Trump just had to insist on it, or Biden.
I mean, I get, like, if you come to the table thinking that Biden is a hardcore Zionist and that he always wanted to give Israel carte blanche to do whatever they want, I mean, he accomplished his goals, I guess. He is a virulent racist against Muslim people and the Palestinian people in specific. and that they never wanted to do a ceasefire, and Trump actually does want to. I hate it here. Ryan Graham posting his first TikTok, possibly his last TikTok. Unless maybe at the last minute when Mr. Elon Musk swoops in.
According to a well-known analyst covering billionaire Elon Musk, the richest man in the world is eyeing a possible purchase of TikTok as its January 19th sale deadline quickly approaches. TikTok parent ByteDance would likely look for a sum of $40 to $50 billion for the U.S. operations of the hit app, Wedbush analyst Dan Ives wrote in a Tuesday note to clients. That's in the range of the $44 billion Musk paid in 2022 for Twitter, now known as X, and well above the roughly $20 billion bid made by the US-led consortium Project Liberty last week. However, a TikTok spokesperson dismissed the idea of a sale to Musk as, quote, pure fiction in a statement to several outlets. Musk has yet to comment on the reports, which don't mention whether Musk has expressed interest in such an acquisition.
Oh, he would.
The acquisition of the U.S. operations of TikTok would be a, quote, golden asset pickup for Musk and his social media company X, added Ives, who covered Twitter when it was a public company and now covers Tesla and the American technology industry at large.
He would totally want to pick it up if he could.
The Wall Street Journal on Chinese officials' discussions about Musk are, quote, not a total shock, given Musk's tight relationship with President-elect Donald Trump, Ives added. Also of note, Musk's electric vehicle company Tesla, his largest business, does a significant amount of business in China.
Just opened like the largest factory in the world in China.
Of Tesla's $25.2 billion in revenue in its most recent quarter came from China. TikTok will be banned Sunday unless ByteDance divests its U.S. operations to an American entity, though the Supreme Court will soon rule on an appeal to the ban, and Trump, who has criticized the idea of banning TikTok, may be able to extend the deadline by 90 days after his Monday inauguration. For more on this story, read Derek Saul's article linked in the description.
I was getting ready to say the Supreme Court already ruled, but they didn't actually. They have not issued a ruling, but they seemed icy. They gave the TikTok lawyers an icy reception. We listened to part of the hearings Friday. One of the things that could impede Elon Musk's ability to be able to purchase TikTok would be the fact that the SEC just sued him in like the last hour, alleging that he failed to disclose Twitter purchases. Securities and Exchange Commission sued Elon Musk on Tuesday, alleging he failed to properly disclose his purchase of Twitter shares before eventually buying the company. The suit comes just days before President-elect Trump's inauguration as president, amid uncertainty over what legal scrutiny First Buddy Musk might face in the new administration. The SEC, in a suit filed in federal court in Washington, alleges that Musk did not file disclosures in a timely manner in March of 2022 as he was acquiring shares of Twitter, because investors did not know the size of his holdings that allegedly let him buy stock at artificially low prices. The SEC said, underpaying by an estimated $150 million. That's all? Today's action is an admission by the SEC that they could not bring an actual case because Mr. Musk has done nothing wrong and everyone sees the sham for what it is. This is according to Musk's attorney, Alex Spiro. Spiro went on to call the case a single-count ticky-tack complaint. The complaint requests an order forcing Musk to give up his unjust profits and pay unspecified civil penalties. Well, also one of the things that I was reading up on last night after I got off stream was the release of the Jack Smith report. And apparently, according to Smith, had Trump not been reelected, he would have put his ass in jail.
And welcome back to America Decides. Special counsel Jack Smith says President-elect Trump would have been convicted if he hadn't won the presidential race. He lays out the evidence to back up this claim, this in his final report on the 2020 election interference case. Smith also alleges Trump blasted key witnesses and prosecutors during the investigation, provoking his followers to go after them. CBS News congressional correspondent Scott McFarland and former Deputy Assistant Attorney General Tom Dupree join us now. Gentlemen, great to see you. I know you've both been following this for nearly 2 years now, so we finally have at least a conclusion of this portion. Tom, I'm wondering what your main takeaways are.
Well, my main takeaway was Jack Smith was pretty clearly writing for history. I think in his view, he was ideally going to be writing for a court or speaking to a jury or presenting his case in a court of law. That's never going to happen. And I think he realized that. And so what he was doing was basically putting forth, committing to writing, committing to the annals of history, the evidence he uncovered. And then to your point, he also reaffirmed his belief that the evidence that he and his team had amassed would have been sufficient to convict President Trump. So I think he was telling the public, I wasn't able to bring my case, but if I had been, I would have won it.
I mean, every prosecutor believes that.
First question was, as an attorney yourself,
they're not going to bring a case they didn't think they could win a conviction on.
Figured that he could get a conviction here. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought it. I mean, he mentioned in these pages, too, that they didn't bring the insurrection.
Well, and that would have been the real news if he had said, you know something, I don't think I would have won this case, right? In other words, to your point, if he didn't think he could win the case, he had no business bringing it in the first place. So, of course, it was redundant, unnecessary. But I think he wanted to signal to the American people that, you know, notwithstanding the outcome of the election, he, Jack Smith, believed that he had a winning hand here to play.
Yeah, and how significant it was that Trump won the election. Scott, to Tom's point, in the report, I want to pull up some of this here. In the report, Smith writes that, quote, after Mr. Trump publicly assailed these individuals, threats and harassment from his followers inevitably followed. I know you've been covering a lot about threats to lawmakers and public officials. I mean, this seems to stand out here.
It's a 137-page report, and you're showing page 112, which just jumped out of the report to a lot of us, because not only is Jack Smith articulating the experience of witnesses, investigators, prosecutors, and even the judge in this case. They were all menaced, all harassed, all threatened. But he seems to be making a broader statement of this is where we are right now. Those who defy President Trump and who are called out publicly by President-elect Trump are going to be subjected to menacing, harassment, and threats. That is a bigger picture issue, which we brought to some of the former investigators with the House January 6th Select Committee. We asked them, was this your reaction?
Is this good press?
Forward. Pete Aguilar, the California Democrat, says, yes, we will not be intimidated, but yes, that has been the experience of those who investigate. Then Benny Thompson, who was the chairman of the House January 6th Select Committee of Mississippi, told CBS News today he would accept a pardon if President Biden offered it because he's concerned of what Donald Trump will do next because of the investigation. Take a listen to more of Benny Thompson speaking to CBS News.
I'm from a part of the country where speaking your opinion used to cost you your life. When I hear someone about to be sworn into the presidents of the United States say he wants to lock you up for doing your job, I believe him. And so if for Benny Thompson that is something that's offered to me, I will accept it.
Caitlin, the clock ran out on Jack Smith. He's trying to make that case pretty clearly in his report. I think one of the things investigators would tell us if we asked them why the clock ran out, one of the reasons is because so many threats, so much harassment, it did slow down the process of getting witnesses.
To that point, I mean, this talk about pardons or preemptive pardons, if they do come, I mean, Tom, should those
Oregon gal,
involved in this report, Jack Smith and others,
DJ Dub, did I tell you good evening?
Any sort of retribution from this
human F being.
Well, I think they should be.
Welcome in, friends. PP girl.
made no secret.
Mox.
He intends to, at a minimum, suggest or even direct that these people be investigated and potentially prosecuted. I mean, he's been very upfront about that. To my mind, the real question is, what do the people running DOJ actually do? And it's one thing for the president to say these people should be investigated, these people should be held accountable. It's quite another thing for the head of the Justice Department or a senior official in the Justice Department to make a prosecutorial decision that there's an evidentiary basis to bring criminal charges and to bring that prosecution. That's where the rubber hits the road. And so I think it is going to be very interesting seeing what happens in the months ahead, because we know there's going to
They both just did the accordion.
at least applied to these.
Did you guys see that? He did the accordion at the exact same time that Trump did it.
And to bring that prosecution. That's where the rubber hits the road. And so I think it is going to be very interesting seeing what happens in the months ahead, because we know there's going to be presidential pressure, to say the least, applied to these people, whether or not they are faithful to the law, faithful to the evidence, and make those prosecutorial calls that are justifiable.
Go ahead.
It's one thing that Tom raises. I think it's especially important in this context. You know,
that was wild.
They're going to face the fear of retribution. But when they landed this report, when they submitted this thing and it was finally released overnight, that was the last step of this historic investigation they were part of, this prosecution of a former president for trying to overturn the election results. There will be no prosecution now. How many Americans, what subset of Americans are dissatisfied with how this final chapter played out with an overnight...
Oh, Oregon gal, I'm sorry to hear that.
...on an obscure government website. This is not the final step many people envisioned, and we'll see how that lands politically.
Let's hope all is well. Good vibes your way.
I mean, we know that Trump won't be convicted here or prosecuted any further, but what about some of the co-conspirators named, Rudy Giuliani, others? I mean, I would assume the next Justice Department, to your point, wouldn't take that up.
Well, I mean, those cases, at least for now, will survive and move ahead. But, of course, there's going to be a new sheriff in town as of noon on January 20th. And I suspect that one of the first things that the new Justice Department leadership will do is reevaluate whether or not they want to continue existing kind of Biden-era prosecutions or whether they want to drop them. So I think that will be yet another
Sabby, good evening.
Of kind of where this administration is going in terms of the administration of justice, whether or not they continue some of these prosecutions or whether they bring them to an end.
And of course, Attorney General nominee Pam Bondi her hearing is tomorrow. And then Scott, just quickly,
I'll be here with you for that.
This investigation. There was another investigation.
Well, come on, sometime. I was on about 8:15 this morning.
Will we ever see that?
It's possible this gets released to Congress, and that's a leaky ship if there ever was one Congress. It's also possible the litigation results in a judge finally allowing that report to be released if those co-defendants in Florida have their cases dismissed.
All right, well, Scott and Tom, an end of an era, and we'll see about that part as well. Thank you both.
So, yeah, we were here at like 8:15 this morning. We're doing confirmation hearings for Trump's batshit crazy picks. This morning was Pete Hegseth. The other two that we were going to be watching this morning actually got delayed. And this is an interesting thing that I saw later. I think we were on Washington Post, and the Washington Post was very close in on the picture of, I don't even know which senator this guy is, but he had a chart behind him. And he was talking about the reduction of standards in the military with a chart that I didn't notice this morning because they were really zoomed in on him. I remember him talking about mom and dad. I mocked him for the mom and dad thing. But the chart says DEI in our military. Also this morning, as we were watching the confirmation hearing, I said, is that Megyn Kelly behind Hegseth? To which everyone in the chat told me I was wrong. That as I so often do, I got people mixed up. We had a whole thing about how I thought all white women look alike. But wouldn't you know who won the pony? Megyn Kelly was indeed at Pete Hegseth's hearing.
No one laid a glove on him. He's good. He's got this. I have zero doubts now that he will be confirmed. Joni Ernst was the big question mark, and she was great today. She was very nice in her questioning of him, very respectful. That's not a no vote. No way. And this is just the Senate.
Hey, I called her last night.
He'll get out of committee, but
I asked her not to vote for him.
Vote, even if Trump is going to lose potentially McConnell, potentially Murkowski, and Collins, which now they're saying he might not. I don't think Pete Hegseth has trouble. I think he's going to get confirmed, and I don't think anybody touched him. And really, to me, the story of the day was how some of these Democrat senators embarrassed themselves trying to. I was humiliated for something.
They embarrassed themselves.
Why do the women always have to be so shitty? Why do the women have to be like these hysterical fools?
Oh, you think she's going to vote for him just because I called her and asked her not to?
Lay gloves on him. I mean, Tim Kaine was the worst. I should say that up front. The worst. The most disgusting, I should say. But he wasn't like an hysteric. Mazie Hirono is so dumb. I can't believe she's a U.S. senator.
I do have Joni's number. I called her last night.
Women can be in combat. You've hurt our feelings. It was like, oh my God.
Won't you play the clips?
Very cause that I know you so desperately want to promote right now. So I was embarrassed for them. I was embarrassed for my sex and how they were behaving.
It's interesting that she's not playing the clips.
Who's the newest Democrat over on the left side. And while her background sounded impressive, she'd been with the CIA and so on. She was so annoying. Oh, I know you've genuflected. Okay, you've done your genuflection to Donald Trump. Like, everyone was just... There's a way of doing cross-examination where you...
What about Duckworth? Duckworth destroyed him.
You're crossing and yourself. And obviously these people, most of them, haven't done it. Like, you can tell the difference. Like, you see a Trey Gowdy cross-examination, you think he's the man. Like, that guy knows what he's doing. You see these people try to do it, you're like, are you trying to make me hate you? Like, I'm not inclined to hate you just because you're a Dem or against Pete. You're just behaving like a prick. Anyway, before I bring in Michael, just want to say,
Huh, Sabby? Tell Jason. Who's Jason? What? What? I have no idea what's going on.
Oh, I went there today. I've never gone to a Senate confirmation hearing as like a regular person, as opposed to as a member of the press. I did it because the Hegseths invited me, and I said, you know what, this would be a great experience for me for a couple of reasons. Number one, I do support Pete Hegseth, and am very happy to telegraph to the world that I do.
No, totally support other streamers.
And if my sitting there in any way telegraphs to people who need it to be telegraphed, that it would be a good thing to support him.
I'm pretty sure I have a list of streamers that you should be supporting on my channel on Twitch and over on YouTube. Are we talking about Jason's Society? Because I don't know what the rules are, man. I can't help you with that.
That I think the allegations against him are bullshit? Great. I'll do it.
But he'll fill your heart hole.
But number two, I did think it would be a fascinating experience for me, too, having been on the other side so many times, not as a senator, but as a member of the media.
Shelley, good evening.
Covering these things to see what it's like to be in the middle of it all. And my takeaway is it's very, very boring. You had to sit there from 9:30.
It was pretty boring.
We got out at 2. There were no breaks. Well, some kept it kind of exciting. For the most part, it was like, especially these Democratic senators who just want to hear themselves talk. The Republicans actually asked him questions that would help us get to know him a bit. The Dems, for the most part, standard. And that was annoying.
The Republicans glazed him.
It doesn't really make you want to run out and run for Senate. I'll say that. So Chris Murphy of Connecticut, you should be feeling good because I'm less inclined to take your job now. But when I decide to take it, it will be mine because you're a disaster.
Wow.
It was just Did we really learn anything, or was it all just like
she's a cunt, isn't she?
Cleaning, right, mostly on the Dem side, and the Republicans, in earnest, trying to search for some answers on what Pete's going to do inside defense. That would be.
And I don't want to say that. That's not because of her sex or anything.
I think he's getting.
She's just a cunt.
I think he did his job.
That's the definition of a cunt.
He thought that this was going to be the toughest hearing for Trump's nominees, like worse than RFKJ, worse than Tulsi. So we'll see if that's true. Trump should be feeling great right now, because my prediction is Pete will have no problems.
Ozempic face.
Better sleep. Your New Year's.
Wow. Going from that shot to that shot. I agree with you. Oh my God, she is hollowed out. Look at that.
Prediction is Pete will have no problems. Are you ready to make better sleep?
Dang. Libertad. Good evening. She been on that Ozempic. You could tell she had more meat on her at the end. She's just a skeleton in the sheet. Joe Biden today deciding to take Cuba off of the terror list. And we're going to go to CBS Miami, so that should tell you what the reaction's going to be. So it is people very upset that Biden is taking Cuba off the terror list because they fled Cuba when they were kids because their parents were fascists.
In the last week of his presidency, President Joe Biden has made the decision to remove Cuba from the state sponsor of terrorism list.
It was all part of a deal facilitated by the Catholic Church to free political prisoners on the island.
CBS News Miami's Anna McAllister joins us live from Little Havana with reaction. Anna?
Well, Lauren, Elliott, you can see behind me there's already some Cuban Americans. They're telling me they're very upset with President Biden's decision about Cuba. They came out here about 30 minutes ago. They have their flags in hand, and they say that they're looking forward to having President-elect Donald Trump back in office. They say that he will reverse this. Now, according to CBS News, this move is part of a deal to release political prisoners in exchange for less restrictions between the U.S. and Cuba. The Catholic Church...
Soup, you handsome man. Welcome in, Raiders. Good evening. If you're not familiar with me, I am JustinFREAKIN. Avalon, good evening. We find out what that news be doing Sunday through Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Thread, Coffee, welcome in. If you don't know me, I have a great way to introduce myself to you. So here, check this out. Go ahead, light one up, tip one back. It's all right to have one fun before you hit the sack. I'm JustinFREAKIN.
All we're establishing is this guy's wicked, sick aesthetic.
Not high enough for this shit.
I guess I gotta thank Matt Walsh for introducing me to JustinFREAKIN.
Hey there, y'all. We're about to get stupid, locked into what that news be doing. Fu Manchu and a slick bandana. Colder than ice, smoother than Santana. Audio, video, chat, and calls. Right-wing nut jobs haunt the halls. What you wanna watch? Hey, what you think? And there's only one choice. It's JustinFREAKIN.
The guy's, he's a formidable voice in the culture.
Light one up and tip one back. It's a right to be high. Let's grab a snack. It's fucking news, quit panic, attack, and play your cards right and get a titty slap. Jump in Discords, have some fun. The man will talk to everyone. Get high and try to debate. When shit pops off, chat thinks it's great. What do you think you're doing? Join the troll patrol. Wherever discourse is brewing, he gives it that southern drawl.
So let's go ahead and bring in Justin. Hey, Justin, how's it going, brother?
First of all, I want to say you're poser South. I'm in Alabama. I'm the real South.
Okay, all right. So why don't you tell us what it takes to be a man?
Well, I don't know. I'm in Alabama and I'll fuck a man in a dress. Why won't you fuck a man in a dress? Are you that insecure that you won't fuck a man in a dress?
That's fantastic. So you're okay with that, right?
Yeah. Why wouldn't I?
Good.
Right-wingers are morons.
Light one hit and hit one back. One more clip before we hit the sex. Set an alert when that shit goes live. Social fucking support and hit subscribe. Light one up and take a hit. He does no harm, but he takes no shit. He's the last one standing when the ship is sinking. Let's take another rip for JustinFREAKIN.
Light one up, tip one back. I'm JustinFREAKIN.
Not high enough for this shit.
You heard the man. Light one up, tip one back. Oh shit. Oregon gal, thank you for throwing out the gift subs. Love you. Love you so much. Making it rain up here in the chat. All right, let's get back to that news. Joe Biden being criticized by CBS Miami from Cubans who fled when they were children, which means that their parents were fascists. So keep that in mind as we watch this next story from CBS Miami. Biden is being slammed over removing Cuba from the terror state sponsor of terror list.
Week of his presidency, President Joe Biden has made the decision to remove Cuba from the state sponsor of terrorism list.
It was all part of a deal facilitated by the Catholic Church to free political prisoners on the island.
CBS News Miami's Anna McAllister joins us live from Little Havana with reaction. Anna?
Well, Lauren, Elliott, you can see behind me there's already some Cuban Americans. They're telling me they're very upset with President Biden's decision about Cuba.
There's a post that goes around ever so often where it's like somebody's talking about blah, blah, blah. Castro seized my house from my grandfather. That's why we fled Cuba. And there's a picture like someone posts, "This is my grandfather's house. Been in our family for generations. What was so special about your grandfather's house?"
Cuba. They came out here about 30 minutes ago. They have their flags in hand, and they say that they're looking forward to having President-elect Donald Trump back in office. They say that he will reverse this. Now, according to CBS News, this move is part of a deal to release political prisoners in exchange for less restrictions between the U.S. and Cuba. The Catholic Church facilitated the agreement to take place before Biden leaves office. Senior government officials say there's no evidence based on recent assessments to support Cuba being on the sponsor of terrorism list, but the decision will likely be reversed, like I mentioned, when President-elect Donald Trump takes office next week. Marco Rubio, who was nominated to be the Secretary of State, is Cuban.
Oh, yeah.
His family fled the country in the 1950s. He and other Republicans have been outspoken about their concerns regarding Cuba and its dictatorship, and we heard from elected officials and locals about Biden's decision.
This is something actually I quite expected. The fact that it took this long is actually surprising, but it's a final shot and just proof of the pudding that, yes, everything, this administration has been a disaster for America.
How is it a disaster?
Freedom-seeking people.
And I'm upset that Biden didn't take much stronger action much earlier on. We should have went back to normalized relations with Cuba. We should be allowed to fucking fly there. Jesus.
In America, especially Cuba, and again, it's a fitting farewell to this disastrous administration.
Look how upset I am. That's how upsetting this is. The Cuban government has spent 65 years killing, and the country is a disaster. There's no water, there's no light, there's no food, there's nothing. They're dying of hunger.
And the Florida Democratic Party, as well as the Florida GOP, they have put out statements saying they are condemning President Joe Biden's decision. And
both the Democrats and the Republicans
lifted Cuba off of this list before he left office, but that was quickly reversed when President-elect Donald Trump took his first term. We're going to continue to follow this story throughout the evening. We'll be live again at 7 o'clock, 10 o'clock on CW33, and at 11. But for now, reporting live from Little Havana, Anna McAllister, CBS News, Miami.
Just insane. There are so many countries with worse human rights records that Americans can totally fly to. On the one hand, I want the embargoes to end so that the people of Cuba stop suffering. But on the other hand, they've been free from a lot of the ills of society we've had to deal with. The capitalism seeping in. Yeah, we can go to Qatar, and they're a modern slave state, or Qatar, as the news has been calling them, that I did not know that that's how it was pronounced. They tie for us for healthcare returns. They send their doctors all over the world because they in the face of the embargo have developed cutting edge medical advancements. Here's one for you. Remember a week or two ago when Biden handed out commutations for prisoners who are on death row? 2 of them tried to object to the commutations, but apparently can't legally object, according to the DOJ. Shannon Agofsky and Lynn Davis, 2 of the 37 inmates whose sentences were changed to life in prison, have no authority to reject the commutation, according to the U.S. attorney in a filing. The request of 2 prisoners who have taken the unusual step of asking a federal judge to nullify their death row commutations granted by President Joe Biden should be denied because the act of leniency doesn't violate the Constitution. Jesus. I would argue that our prisons constitute cruel and unusual punishment and do violate the Constitution. And that's probably the reason why they would rather be put to death than continue to live on death row. The inmates, Shannon Agofsky, 53, and Lynn Davis, 60, are being held in a federal prison in Terre Haute, Indiana, where the U.S. government puts inmates to death. A week after Biden announced he was commuting the sentences of 37 of the 40 prisoners on federal death row to life without the possibility of parole, Agofsky and Davis filed emergency motions seeking an injunction to block the change, arguing it could affect their appeals amid claims of innocence in their initial convictions. Oh, shit! So this is not their argument. Oh, Jesus! This is completely different. So they believe that they have a better chance of getting out because they're innocent if they're on death row. Whoa! In responding to Davis's request for an injunction, the U.S. government offered 3 reasons U.S. District Judge James Sweeney should deny it, writing that not only are the commutations legal, but also that the president has the authority to decide them, and a prisoner has no authority to reject one. The president's commutation of a sentence is the determination of the ultimate authority that the public welfare will be better served by inflicting less than what the judgment fixed. Allowing Davis to veto this action would encroach on this exclusive and ultimate authority that is part of the constitutional scheme. In his filing, Agofsky said he is worried that no longer being a death row inmate would strip him of heightened scrutiny in his case, or the process in which courts should examine death row penalty cases for error because of the life and death consequences of the sentence. Besides requesting an injunction, the men also asked for co-counsel to be assigned to help them in the latest litigation. Sweeney agreed last week and assigned the inmates representation through the Indiana Federal Community Defenders. Sweeney noted in an order granting counsel that federal prisoners are entitled to counsel only when they are under death sentences or for evidentiary hearings in their cases. Here, Mr. Agofsky is no longer under a death sentence. Therefore, whether to appoint counsel is purely a discretionary matter. He added that the court harbors serious doubt that it has any power to block a commutation, but that given the novelty of the legal question, the court prefers to receive counsel briefing on the motion. Sweeney referred to a 1927 U.S. Supreme Court ruling that maintains that a president has the power to grant reprieves and pardons and that the convict's consent is not required. Agofsky, however, believes he has the right to refuse a commutation based on the wording in the Constitution, which says a president shall have power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. According to Agofsky's wife, Laura, he said at issue is the word grant, which he believes implies the person needs to have made an initial request. In his case, he said, as well as Davis's, the men never requested commutations and refused it when asked multiple times to ask for a reduced sentence. They contended that sets them apart from other former death row inmates who did seek commutations. Agofsky was convicted in 1989 for the murder of a bank president, Dan Short. So even if he was guilty of that offense, no, he wasn't. Davis, a former New Orleans police officer, was convicted of the 1994 murder of Kim Groves. So Davis can go fuck himself. I think the commutation should stick in his case. Agofsky, even if he did do it, I don't care. Okay, Avalon does make a good point. It could have been like a little, It's a Wonderful Life size bank in your town. Still probably predatory, but not as egregious as like a U.S. bank or Wells Fargo. So maybe I do have a little compassion on that front. In 1989, banks weren't so completely out of hand at that time. Speaking of out of hand, things apparently got out of hand earlier today as the House advanced a measure. Let me go ahead and throw out a content warning for what I assume will be a healthy dose of transphobia coming at you. The House has advanced a bill that would block transgender girls from participating in women's sports.
I'm Matt Gelka in Washington, where House Republicans made the debate over transgender athletes competing in women's sports one of Congress's top priorities.
Why?
House Republicans quickly passed legislation aimed at barring transgender women and girls from participating in sports based on their biological sex assigned at birth.
It's absolutely absurd that we have to actually pass a bill that says only women can be in women's sports, but I've been honored to be in part of the fight.
Transgender rights played a large role in the 2024 election.
As we learned this morning, there are 10 trans athletes in all of collegiate sports in all of the country.
Kamala is for they, them. President Trump is for you.
With Republicans using a perceived threat to women's sports as a key campaign issue.
President Trump ran on this. He ran ads on this. And I think the public has spoken very clearly about where they stand on this.
Transgender issues also became part of the self-reflection Democrats have done in the wake of 2024 losses. 2 Democrats joined all Republicans.
Because Democrats campaigned on trans rights.
Party, the bill is seen as an unnecessary...
Not ran away with it and threw trans people under the bus.
Republicans' creepy, weird obsession with your kids' private parts now means that they are passing bills that let them inspect what's in your kids' pants.
CDC data has about 3% of high schoolers identifying as transgender, but multiple polls show a majority of Americans support restrictions on competing in school athletics. And around half of the states in the country have passed laws with school athletic restrictions.
My own daughters competed in sports as they were growing up, and I can only imagine the anger I would feel as a dad if they had their trophies stolen from them.
10 athletes out of 500,000 athletes, that's the scope of what we're dealing with. So the House Republican Conference would choose to have this conversation rather than something that is more expansive, that truly helps lower costs or make people's lives better.
House Republicans previously passed the bill in 2023, but the then Democratic-controlled Senate opted not to take it up. Senate Republicans can take it up this time, but it remains to be seen if any Democrats would join in to get the 60 votes needed in the chamber. Reporting in Washington.
Oh, they didn't play a clip of Riley Gaines. She was there to talk about the bill.
Well, thank you. Hello, my name is Riley Gaines. I am an ambassador for Independent Women's Voice. I am the vice chair of Athletes for America with America First Policy Institute, and I'm a former collegiate swimmer from the University of Kentucky. First, and let me echo Speaker Johnson's gratitude for the people who stand alongside me, behind me, their leadership on this issue, how they have stood firm.
She tied for 5th.
I know it's not easy, but nonetheless, it's necessary, and I would argue that it's urgent. And so I thank you all. And I'm thrilled with the passage of H.R. 28, the protection of women and girls in sports.
First, second, and third
Truthfully, I'm mad.
place in the race.
Something we have to do. I'm mad that we as women have
And she always says she lost to Leah Thomas in.
I'm mad that we have
First,
to
second, and third
in areas
were all cis women.
have to beg for safety on the court. Or
4th was Leah Thomas.
walking in the streets at night.
Riley Gaines tied for 5th.
The things, let's just go through a couple of the things we heard on the House floor today from Democrats. We heard of things like genital exams. We heard that girls will be asked to show what's in their underwear. We heard that they have to show internal and external anatomy, inspections, Taliban-like enforcers.
Yeah.
Hire predators to peek at girls, on and on and on. Weird fear-mongering about predators.
How is that fear-mongering?
But that's what Democrats do best. If you don't know what they're up to, just look at what they're accusing the right of. There have only been a few girls. Another thing they said, there's only a few girls who have been injured at the hands of a boy. It's such a small percentage. I heard that this bill is a waste of time.
It was.
I received when I heard that is that I'm a waste of time.
You are absolutely a waste of time, you grifting fucking bitch. Oh, I'm sorry, Flash corrected me. I got that wrong. Leah didn't get 4th. Leah tied with Riley for 5th. All 4 of the women that came in front of her were cis women. You are a waste of time. Nobody should give you the time that we're giving you. As a matter of fact, I'm going to turn you off because we got better things to do, like watch Jasmine Crockett put my future GOP mommy Nancy Mace in her place. Apparently, things got really contentious earlier today in a House Oversight Committee meeting.
Is this 5? Mm-hmm. Any further members seek recognition?
Mr. Chair,
Chair, recognize Ms. Crockett.
I have an amendment at the desk.
So there's 5. Will the clerk? Everyone has the amendment. Everyone has the Crockett amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please?
The Crockett amendment.
An amendment to the rules of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform for the 119th Congress is offered by Ms. Crockett of Texas.
Without objection.
Red Joker.
Considered as read. I reserve a point of
Arctic
order.
Man.
The gentlewoman is recognized
Alien.
for 5 minutes.
Good evening, Dougie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. During the 118th Congress, Oversight Republicans disbanded one of the most important subcommittees in Congress, the Subcommittee on Civil Rights and Civil Liberties. And now in the 119th Congress, the chairman and House Republicans have decided to prioritize the demands of the real president, Elon Musk, and his billionaire friends over the needs of the American people. Now, we are about to approach the birthday of Martin Luther King. It's actually tomorrow. And on January 20th will be the inauguration of Donald Trump, but it will also be the observation of MLK Day. And the fact that we have decided that in this country we are not going to honor civil rights should be something that we all take issue with. Considering the fact, for some that don't know what civil rights are about, because some people only believe that it deals with black folk, let me explain. Civil and political rights are a class of
Lay it
rights
on
that
us.
protect individuals' freedom from the infringement by governments, social organizations, and private individuals. They ensure one's entitlement to participate in the civil and political life of society and the state. Defined another way, the right to be free from discrimination, the freedom to worship as we choose, the right to vote for our elected representatives, the protections of due process, the right to privacy. If any of that sounds familiar, it is because these are rights that are born out of our Constitution, something that we all supposedly have sworn an oath to, and we swear to not only
supposedly
swear to it, we are supposed to protect those rights. Interestingly enough, we just had the funeral of one of our beloved presidents.
I guess it would have been kind of serendipitous had Harris won and been inaugurated on MLK Day, but not. Representative Crockett is correct. Not everybody knows what rights are. Some people just fell out of a fucking coconut tree.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
And I caught a flight to Austin on the day of the funeral. And I had the honor of sitting next to.
I promised to retire that one come Monday.
Little familiar with the White House. That person was Lucy Baines Johnson. And when I tell you that she is a wealth of information, I really mean that. And when we had an opportunity to talk about what she experienced as her father was president during a time in which, honestly, our country was on fire. And I would argue that, unfortunately, our country is on fire right now. When I first ran for office, I ran for the state house and said that we were in the midst of a modern day civil rights movement, and I have not been convinced otherwise just yet. But this is the daughter of the president that signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. She was also there when he signed the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And to be perfectly honest, without that voting rights, I don't believe that I actually would have a seat in Congress. And so I do believe in preserving the fact that everyone should be entitled to real and true representation, because I do have a Section 2 seat as our Voting Rights Act has been decimated. But one of the stories that she told me was that her father asked her about coming over to the Congress for the signing of the bill as it relates to the Voting Rights Act. Now, for her, it was a bit inconvenient as an 18-year-old to have to leave the White House and go over to Congress. And she asked her father, why should we go over to the Congress, Daddy, to sign this particular bill? And she said, we need to go over to the Congress because we need to pay due respect to those members of Congress that knew that voting for this bill meant that they would not be returning to Congress, but they had the courage to do what was right for this country and make sure that everyone's voices were going to be heard. The one thing that we could do, the very small thing that we could do.
You left off the part where he said, now let's go past the N-word bill.
Reinstitute this particular subcommittee because, unfortunately, I don't see the type of courage that the people that served back in the 60s had coming out of some of our colleagues. And so I'm asking you to do the courageous thing today and just institute a subcommittee that would make sure that we are looking out for those protections of everyone in this country, to make sure that we have real freedom, something that we all supposedly espouse to believe in. And with that, I will yield.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, we're talking about LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, who also had a huge fucking cock. And one of my favorite stories about LBJ, I tell this all the time on stream. he would invite world leaders over, and then like they would be having a discussion, and he'd make them go to the bathroom with him and stand next to him at a urinal so he could sling his giant schlong around to intimidate him. He would take him out on his boat, and he would piss off the side of the boat and then just happen to sling his schlong. To try to bully people. A literal dick swinging contest. Oh, Johnson was a very, very intelligent man. And I think the presidency really fucked his head up because he went into like seclusion for the rest of his life, grew his hair out. It's kind of weird. He's an interesting character. Probably one of the most fascinating presidents. Anyway, got a little sidetracked with LBJ talk there.
Gentlelady's time's expired. Any member seek recognition?
Yes.
Mr. Higgins? Oh, Ms. Mace was first. I'm sorry. Ms. Mace.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I don't know what's going on today. I find it extremely rich and offensive. So we're talking about civil rights. I'm the former ranking member on the Civil Rights Subcommittee, something I believe in civil rights and civil liberties of all Americans. And we were talking
unless you're trans.
Infringement of individual people. Also, quote, the right to privacy of individuals. Coming from a party that can't define what a woman is and won't give women the right to privacy. You all want men with penises, chicks with dicks, in the bathroom with us. You want women to be forced to undress in front of men in the locker room and in dressing rooms. And it's so hypocritical for you to sit here and say and be, screaming from the rooftops about the right to privacy and civil rights when you don't respect women. And you don't respect women who've been raped, women who are victims of sexual abuse. And you want me, a victim of rape, a survivor of rape, to go into a locker room and be forced to undress in front of a man? You have to be effing kidding me. So I don't want to hear about you talk about rights, individual rights, civil rights, because you can't find the courage from the 60s to fight for women all around America, fight for women like me, every single woman. And as a rape survivor, I shouldn't have to explain to you why women have rights and why women, when we're in the bathroom, when we're in the locker room, when we're in a dressing room, why I don't feel safe when there is a man nearby. And the fact that we're going here and we're going to say all these things is the ripeness of hypocrisy on the Hill. We need to tell the truth. And if we're going to talk about the rights of individuals, we have to talk about it. Everybody has rights, including women. And at some point, men are infringing on the rights of women. We just had it today. We just had a vote about protecting women and girls in sports. And I believe it wasn't one, it was two people from the Democrat Party who voted to protect women's rights in sports today. Two. So this is, Mr. Chairman, this is a deeply...
Were their names Torres and Cuellar? I would put money on those being the two names.
Offensive conversation to me today. We want to talk about real freedom. Women have freedom in this country. Women have the freedom to go to a private women's only space and not see a man in it. Women have the right to change and not be feared that somebody with their sexual perversion, someone who's confused about their gender, we have the right to feel safe.
Ah, shucks. I only got one of them right. It was Henry Cuellar, but it was Vicente Gonzalez. So Torres actually voted the right way?
In these spaces. We have the right to know that we're not going to have
Bet it was a good guess, though.
trans people filming us in the bathroom. How many of these trannies are taking
What?
These men are taking selfies in women's spaces in the bathroom. It's gross. It's
The
disgusting.
fuck?
So if we're going to talk about civil rights, let's talk about the rights of women in this country and how you are stripping them away every single day. And you're doing it in your legislation. You're doing.
She just denigrated a whole group of people while talking about civil rights.
And your messaging, you're doing it on X. You're making women feel unsafe in this country. And you're making the opportunity for women and girls to be raped, to be sexually abused in this country even greater than they've ever been. So don't come over here with your attitude and talk to me about rights when you're trying to take my rights as a woman, a rape survivor, away. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Any member seek recognition? Ms. Stansberry.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. We didn't get the response there. I went and tried to find the whole clip because I wanted the whole clip. Representative Crockett.
Somebody's campaign coffers really are struggling right now. So she gonna keep saying trans, trans, trans so that people will feel threatened. And child, listen, I want y'all to tell me whether or
Do
not.
not call me a child. I am no child.
I want
Don't
to
even
find
start.
out
I am a grown
which
woman.
of those
I am 47 years
emails
old. I have broken
actually
more
have.
glass ceilings than you
Chairman,
ever
I
Order,
am
please.
reclaiming my
Let's go.
time.
You will not do that. I
Order.
am not a child.
I am
not a
reclaiming
child.
my time.
If you want to take it outside,
Mr. Chairman, the committee is not
Okay.
in order.
All right. Order.
Point of order. Point of order.
Order.
Somebody's campaign coffers really are struggling right now. So
Demagoguery.
trans, 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 so that people will feel threatened. And child, listen, I want y'all
I
to
am
tell
no
me
child.
whether or
Do
not.
not call me a child. I am no child.
I want
Don't
to
even
find
start.
out
I am a grown
which
woman.
of those
I am 47 years
emails
old. I have broken
actually
more
have.
glass ceilings than you
Chairman,
ever
I
Order,
am
please.
reclaiming my
Let's go.
time.
You will not do that. I
Order.
am not a
Chairman,
child.
I am
not a
reclaiming
child.
my time.
If you want to take it outside,
Mr.
we
Chairman,
can
the committee is not
Okay.
in order.
All right. Order.
I would think Jasmine would kick your fucking ass, Nancy. Just throwing it out there. Hey, look, I got a Maynard. You guys want to see a Maynard? For those of you new here, that is Maynard James Kitten. Maynard James Kitten. I saw a kitten named Maynard that needed a home, and I'm like, well, that name says he wants to come live with me, so had him for about 6-7 years now. 6 years. I wouldn't call him sweet. He very much takes after his namesake. He's very plump. Very plump. A lot of that's water weight, though. He loves fucking water. He's always wet. Got a wet-ass pussy. DJ Dub, what's going on up in your state? Yes, Curiouser is correct. If I could have bedding made out of, like, his fur on his belly is the softest fur ever. It's so sad that he doesn't want you to touch his belly, though. He does not want to be petted, but he is so fucking soft. In Minnesota, the legislative session began with half of the representatives not attending.
Well, the House gavels in, and Minnesota appears to be in a constitutional crisis on day one of the legislative session. The war over control of the House saw its first airstrikes today, with Democrats staying away and Republicans seizing control.
Fox 9's Corin Hoggard live for us in Shakopee today. Some action there. DFL members were there talking. Corin, it has been a really crazy, really unprecedented day.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, Amy. The Republicans spent their day at the Capitol. The Democrats started their day, at least, right here in Shakopee with a ruling in favor of Representative Brad Tabke. And now the DFL will take their arguments to another court, the state Supreme Court, to try to keep Republicans from ruling the House while they're not around. A half-empty House greeted Secretary of State Steve Simon as he launched the 2025 session. But after roll call,
District 3A, Roger Scraba. Scraba present.
Simon said there weren't enough members to do any business.
There being 67 members present, there is no quorum as required by the Constitution of the state of Minnesota.
Mr.
The House
Secretary,
may not conduct any further business, and the House of Representatives
Mr.
is
Secretary,
adjourned.
the House is not adjourned. You do not have authority over the House of Representatives.
As Simon walked away, Republicans took over and ran the day's session as if nothing was happening.
I therefore declare Representative Lisa Dameth duly elected Speaker of the House of Representatives.
They cast a unanimous vote for Lisa Dameth as Speaker of the House, which would make her the state's first person of color in the role. The DFL caucus watched it happen from 30 miles away.
What we saw today was an attempted coup.
Dozens of members made Shakopee headquarters for the day. They called the Republican session a sham, but they recognize people across the state may have strong feelings when they see video of their empty seats.
I would imagine that Minnesotans are irritated with both of us.
Democrats have offered to give Republicans majority control until they're no longer a majority, likely in February instead of for a full 2 years. Republicans say every offer they've heard is unreasonable.
What we're offering is to come in. I am the Speaker of the House, and we look forward to working with them over the next 2 years in a reasonable way.
And Republicans say they'll keep showing up every day and just going about their business. Democrats, on the other hand, are going to the state Supreme Court. The Secretary of State, Steve Simon, already says he's filing a petition with the Supreme Court. Some other members are likely to do the same thing, and they're hoping that the Supreme Court will make a ruling that'll determine how to go forward sometime in the next couple of weeks. Live in Shakopee, Corin Hoggard, Fox 9.
Is there a tie or something? Let's see if we can get the deets on this. Minnesota House Democrats boycotted the first day of the session. Oh my God. I'm not high enough for this. That one's empty. I'm going to have to pack a new one. Ugh. I want explanation. Okay, the key sticking point is whether Republicans will make good on a threat to refuse to seat incumbent Democratic Representative Brad Tabke of Shakopee. He won re-election by 14 votes, even after local election officials said 20 ballots were accidentally destroyed without being counted. A judge earlier Tuesday declared that Tabke was the legal winner and rejected a GOP effort to force a special election in the swing district that they potentially could have won. The House came out of the November election tied 67-67, and top leaders from both parties started to work out a power-sharing agreement that presumed a tie. But a different judge late last month declared that a newly elected Democrat in another heavily Democratic district didn't really live there. That gave the GOP a 67-66 majority until a special election can take place in 2 weeks. Republicans then declared their intent to take full advantage until the tie is restored and threatened to refuse to seat Tabke even if they lost the court case. The top House Democrat, former Speaker Melissa Hortman, said that at a news conference that Tabke's district in Shakopee that Republicans would not commit in final negotiations to letting Tabke keep his seat. Hortman said she had proposed letting DeMuth become Speaker for the full session, but otherwise revert to an earlier power-sharing agreement, assuming that the special election restores the tie. But she said DeMuth would not rule out taking action to move against Tabke at some point. DeMuth vowed in an acceptance speech to work tirelessly to foster a culture of respect and civility in the House, but she didn't directly mention the boycott. Republicans then adjourned until Wednesday. The number 2 Republican leader, Rep. Harry Niska, told reporters afterward that Simon, a member of the executive branch, is barred by the constitutional separation of powers from controlling the work of the House. But House Democrats said the GOP actions were illegal and that DeMuth is not Speaker. Simon said in a statement that he intends to ask the Minnesota Supreme Court to rule that the GOP moves were not legitimate. It's unclear how long the courts might take to resolve the dispute. This is the first time the Minnesota legislature has faced such a boycott, but similar stalling tactics have been used elsewhere. Okay, so did that explain it? Everybody clear on what went down? That's one of the problems with not pre-watching things. I like to have a honest reaction on stream, but sometimes crucial details are left out of a story, and we might need to do a little more digging on it. Sometimes I get misled by the headline. Over in Kansas, the Republicans have apparently banned journalists from being able to cover the House of Representatives.
Media rules for the Kansas House of Representatives are now in effect with the start of the legislative session. In the past, reporters were able to be on the House floor to cover proceedings as they happen. Now reporters are required to stay in the gallery. 12 News reporter Cale Chapman spoke with lawmakers and the Kansas Press Association about the new rules.
Kansas lawmakers releasing new media rules banning reporters from most of the House floor. The ban raising concerns among journalists across the state.
We just really think that transparency can really be a bipartisan issue and that this is something that both sides of the aisle should be pushing for with greater transparency, not less.
Kansas Press Association Executive Director Emily Bradbury says by limiting where and how journalists can report on the legislature, lawmakers could leave the public in the dark on what's going on in Topeka.
To the public whose ability to understand
What's the matter with Kansas?
is sometimes really dependent upon those media outlets. And to be able to be on the House floor and to ask those questions in real time is really important to what we do.
Representative Webster Roth says the new rules put in place by House Speaker Dan Hawkins are supposed to help cut down on distractions on the House floor.
We need to be transparent and open, but at the same time, we need to be focused on what we're doing, and we need to be able to listen and not get distracted.
And shouldn't get in the way of transparency.
The reporters can still be on the chamber floor, on the sides, or up in the gallery. They can hear everything that's going on. They can see which bills are being debated, and they can listen to the debate. So I don't see how this would even remotely restrict any of that information.
Bradbury says Discussions about changing the new rules, while still early on, are already happening.
This can be overturned at any time by the House. And so that's what we are just respectfully asking, is that we would be able to have space back on the floor.
In Wichita, Kiel Chapman, 12 News.
And we reached out to the House Speaker Dan Hawkins' office. They declined to comment on the new media rule.
Fuck you, Dan. State houses barely back in session, already drama across the country. But hey, it's what I live for. We've opened the show every night since Wednesday of last week with fire coverage. Fires died down over the last couple of days, but expected to pick back up tonight.
Never expected this to happen.
This is live.
Now they're trying to operate outside of Palisades throughout LA, a community that they have proudly served for nearly half a century.
It should never have happened.
In an instant, their business was gone.
To think that there wasn't enough water just to put out a fire.
Wow.
Just breaks my heart.
Though home is Tarzana, the Palisades have been part of the Church family for 40 years.
It was our second home.
Ray and Mandy Church immigrated here from England with nothing, and the owner of Palisades Plumbing gave Ray a job. That kind man became more like family, and when he passed away 20 years ago, Ray took over the company. So the business has a much deeper meaning to this family, and seeing it in ruins is heart-wrenching.
But I spoke to 2 or 3 customers, and they were and they'd lost their houses, and their heart went out to me. It was devastating, absolutely devastating.
It is. It is totally devastating.
Big part of your life's just gone. It's just history.
Desperate for answers, they worked their way into the fire zone Wednesday.
I mean, what answers do you want?
Holding out hope and a lifetime of memories, running around Dad's office with her sisters and watching their kids do the same.
Just those memories, seeing all that rubble and all that ash on the floor, it was just like, where are we? This seems like a war zone. This just doesn't seem real almost.
But to think it's so much devastation, that there's not enough resources and just not enough water for the firemen to put out a fire, it's just, that should never have happened.
The very few in Palisades with the house still standing needs Palisades Plumbing services. And when they can return, their commitment to the community still stands. In the meantime, they hope to expand.
But we're here for you.
I was hoping we'd get an update on
Clean up. We'll get in there and clean up.
the conditions currently.
We fix gas lines. We're plumbers. I have to.
Winds were expected to pick up this afternoon.
We cannot get into the Palisades, so what do? So we can work in the Valley, we can work in Calabasas, we can work in Santa Clarita, we'll do what we need to do. But people don't know who we are, so I want people to know that we're an honest family business, and we are good at what we do.
They're such a sweet family. They have 4 plumbers that they are still paying because those plumbers have kids and they're trying to support their family.
It does look like the wind is
as long as they possibly
pretty calm at the moment.
They can only
That's the thing that we're watching.
Don't have any business themselves. So even though Google says that they are permanently closed, of course they are not. They are operating. They're ready to work. So you can call their number on Google. You can also support them through a GoFundMe.
Google already says they're permanently closed. What?
For plumbers so that they can support their family. But just a really remarkable family, and like so many, and you're getting ready to talk to somebody about insurance, they did not have insurance. Reporting live, I'm Haley Winston.
Well, the winds have been calm for the last few days over the weekend.
Let's talk more now about California's insurance crisis. Insurers dropping homeowners because of the growing wildfire danger, and now homeowners
So yeah, no live reports currently. But let's kind of catch you up on what has happened over the last day. We even have a video that shows us the possible cause of the Eaton fire. through their ring cam.
Looking into what may have caused the deadly Eaton fire in Altadena.
KCAL News reporter Amanda Starantino joins us live with a piece of evidence that may help their case and what she's finding on the ground. Amanda.
Good morning. So a little different vantage point here. We've been in the neighborhood throughout the last week, but we came up here into the actual canyon where this fire started. And I want to give you guys a look here. So this video going around on social media shows these utility lines that were on fire at the beginning of the when this fire started, when everyone was evacuating. So we don't know if it's actually the poles itself or the canyon, what was lit, but it was somewhere in this area. So you see some CAL FIRE crews out there investigating that area, also maybe cleaning up some hot spots, making sure there's nothing else that needs to be mopped up there. But we were looking at those high voltage power lines there, and it looks like some are broken. There's 2 over there. We don't know if they're old lines, if this is new damage done, but just a different look at what they're investigating out here. So when we made our way up here, you can actually see the fire burn through this entire area, and it kind of gave us a look at what firefighters were also dealing with when battling this fire. So we're right above Eaton Canyon Trail. So the Eaton Wash is right there, completely dry and empty. But as we looked around a little bit more, you can see over there is actually the Eaton Canyon Reservoir, which is completely dried up. So that was a big problem for firefighters when fighting this fire. We keep hearing from people there was no water, there was no water. Well, from here you can see it is completely dry. So we also saw another fire crew up here just making sure everything was looking good. There's no hot spots here. But when we came up here, we actually saw around the corner, which is kind of the center of this lawsuit going on because of this video that just surfaced. SoCal Edison is up here. We haven't talked to them yet. We just made our way up here, but they are up here investigating what's going on up here, also looking at the lines as well. So we definitely have a lot more questions here. But why don't you take a look at the video?
Hey, babe, I need you to come out here right now.
Holy.
Okay, so an Altadena couple shared this timestamp clip online. The condensed half-an-hour ordeal shows just how quickly a brush fire can take over. But it's what we see in the background, though, that's getting the attention that I'm talking about here. So the homeowner saw the fire burning near a SoCal Edison utility tower along Eaton Canyon Trail. Within 30 minutes, the fire had spread. This was from 1 week ago. Now this morning, the Eaton fire's 33% contained, has burned more than 14,000 acres, more than 7,000 structures destroyed, and 16 people have been found dead so far in the rubble. We talked to those who took the video. Take a listen.
At one point, I think I had broken down because I'd said goodbye to the house and I started to sob. You really can't delay in taking it seriously.
So some of the fire victims who lost their home are suing SoCal Edison. We talked to SoCal Edison. They said that they are aware of the lawsuit. However, they have not been served with a complaint just yet. So we are trying to figure out what's going on. I'm walking up to SoCal Edison right now to just kind of see what they're doing here. But you can see the fire burn through this whole area. And then SoCal Edison's right here. So let me see if they'll give us a clue of what's going on. Hey guys, what are you doing up here?
Yeah.
PSPS.
What are you doing?
It's PSPS.
Which is what exactly?
His first day, you don't know.
Okay, you guys just checking out the wires and stuff.
Yeah, we're not living there. I can give you a number if you want to call it.
Okay, sounds good.
Put him on the spot.
So SoCal Edison is up here checking out these power lines up here. We can obviously see there is some damage. Again, we don't know if it's because of the fire or if it's what started the fire. A lot of questions to be answered here, but again, a lot of people have questions about how this exactly started, and we're just trying to work to get those answers. Back to you guys.
All right, great reporting, Amanda. Thank you.
Well, what's Jay Leno doing?
And people are coming by. Want you to meet Jay Leno. What you came by?
He's healed up.
Drop off some supplies.
Well, we're cooking for the crew, and well, you guys, if you're hungry, we got a big barbecue going, and because they're all getting boxed lunches, and we figure let's get some hot food. So it's kind of fun. I drove a 1941 American LaFrance fire truck, so the guys got to.
Wait, you brought your own fire truck?
My own fire. It's good to have your own fire truck when you live in LA. And
so it's a 1941 fire?
1941, yeah. But anyway, so we've got it loaded up, and we cooked yesterday in Pasadena at the Rose Bowl for the crew there, and we're here today, and we'll be at some of the other locations the next 2 or 3 days. Yeah.
How, for you seeing this, I mean, you're a longtime resident here.
You know, it's unbelievable. It's biggest natural disaster. Not that 9/11 was a natural disaster, but it's literally on that scale. I mean, it's
Wouldn't want him in L.A. barbecuing.
buildings.
As L.A. is barbecued.
If you drove all day, you couldn't see 10,000 buildings. I mean, you get on that hill and you look for miles, and there's nothing. It looks like Hiroshima or just some horrible thing. But, you know, the sense of community, neighbors meeting neighbors never met before, and people all pitching in. I mean, I try to look at the bright side of things.
It is true, though. I mean, you see, I mean, the sheriff was just on talking about, you know, the arrest for looters, some 30 or so in L.A. County. But what you hear of more, I mean, obviously that's an awful thing. What you hear of more is neighbors helping neighbors, people who didn't even know each other before.
Right. I mean, it's a shame it has to come to that. I mean, the last time, remember, was 9/11. Remember President Bush, we all had to get together. And the sense of community, for 3 or 4 days, everybody put aside their political beliefs and who's on your lawn on a sign and all that nonsense. And it's happening here today. I mean, it's a shame that's what it takes, but...
It's interesting you say that because, you know...
It's weird you talk about 9/11 like, oh, for 3 or 4 days, and then the Bush administration started pushing through, you know, illegal wiretapping and the Patriot Act and all that good shit.
Next week there's, you know, the inauguration and everything.
Started the march towards an illegal war.
The world of politics. I mean, what's happening here is so real and so pure and so important of people connecting and loving each other and remembering that we are all part of a community.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I mean, it's an entire city wiped out. I mean, Pacific Palisades, it doesn't exist and probably won't exist the next 5-6 years. I don't know how you rebuild from this. It's $160 billion. There's no insurance company in the world have that much money. So I mean, the problems will be insurmountable, but we'll get through it. We always do.
Well, I love what you're doing. It's really a pleasure to see you.
The first night, I said the damage from this could be in the hundreds of billions, and I wasn't wrong. So apparently they're estimating it at like 160 billion thus far. And we're still not out of the woods yet. But these two old geezers were able to save their home with their water hoses. That was horrible. Why'd I call them geezers?
You have to see. A local married couple, both in their 80s, stayed put during the Palisades.
I'm sorry. I'm a horrible person.
To tell their story. They used a garden hose to put out the flames that were
Please don't hate me, guys.
As Eyewitness News reporter Josh Haskell explains in this exclusive story, this is not their first time battling a wildfire.
I genuinely feel safer up here.
Ben Boggs, good evening.
I think you can understand that, but I do.
Susan Sulcer watched the Palisades fire approach her home Tuesday from her kitchen window, snapping these photos. The 85-year-old fought the fire with her 86-year-old husband Winston, saving their home, just like they did in the 1978 fire that hit the Palisades. Their home is one of only 3 still standing at the top of their Pacific Palisades street.
Aww.
I used the hose to control the ground fire and stop that end of the house from burning. I wasn't sure where Winston was. Couldn't contact him, but it turned out he was at the south end of the house doing the same thing, using a hose to keep the flames from touching the house.
I thought I was going to lose them both. I actually thought that I had when I was seeing the coverage.
The Sulcer's son, Mark, who lives outside...
Yeah. We had geezers last time, too.
...to evacuate, even if their home was surrounded by fire. In addition to fighting the fire themselves, Susan and Winston Sulcer credit the nearly 100 live oak trees that Winston planted in their backyard for helping prevent their home from catching fire.
I mean, they're in their 80s and they saved their own house. How do you explain this?
Tenacity. Yeah.
We'll give them a hug.
Yeah. I mean, both of my parents are really smart people.
Luck.
And are adept dealing with things. You build a life, right? And it's hard to imagine how you leave that. I don't know that that's a wise thing to do.
Winston Sulcer was injured fighting the fire with his garden hose, suffering burns on his arms and legs that will keep him in the hospital for a week.
Oh.
But Susan Sulcer says he'll be okay, and even without water or power, she hasn't left her home and has no plans to.
This is heaven for me, this location. And I'm almost 85 years old, and the remodel of this house was my job that I completed 12 years ago, and here I stay. Whether it's as a human being or ashes, I don't know, but so far it's as a human being.
I love this woman. And it is a gorgeous home.
7 Eyewitness News.
They just couldn't part with their home, and they saved it. That is just incredible.
Hello, I'm Mark.
Hey, Mark Brown. Always a pleasure, Mark. And it was probably a pretty modest home that they built. Was it 50 years or something like that? It's probably now worth millions. All right, we're going to do some crime stories, but I don't think anything tonight is all that outrageous. I don't think we don't have a lot of death and destruction, so I'll hit the content warning. Well, I mean, this first one is a murder suspect getting charged that I'm kind of just doing it to show you his picture. I don't think that necessarily the story is all that interesting, but the suspect definitely is. Murder suspect charged hours after deadly stabbing. It's in Whitfield, Georgia, Whitfield County, Georgia. A murder suspect was put behind bars on Tuesday morning, just 4 hours after deputies say he fatally stabbed a woman in Whitfield County. Sheriff's office says the stabbing occurred on Monday night. They found a victim with one stab wound, pronounced her dead at the scene. Deputies say Brian Moore ran from the scene on foot but was later arrested. Teamwork is about more than just working together. It's about bringing all our strengths and resources to bear in the pursuit of justice. It takes a collective effort to respond to a tragedy like this. In just a few hours, we identified the offender, secured arrest warrants, and tracked them down in the woods to make their arrest. This shows what's possible when we stand together for our community. I'm amazed they were able to find him so easily. Kind of seems like he'd be able to blend in with the general public. Nothing about him really sticks out. There's not any distinguishing markings or anything like that. And it's not like this is Whitfield County, Georgia. Is that what is it? Whitfield County, Georgia. This motherfucker's out in the backwoods where the Duke boys running from law enforcement. A teacher has been fired and arrested after they found out she had some drugs in her classroom.
A Cheatham County 6th grade English teacher is under arrest after she allegedly was found with illegal narcotics in her purse.
This is Tennessee.
In the classroom. Welcome to News 2 at 4. I'm Haley Wilgus. News 2's Andy Cordan has been investigating this story today and joins us with this crime tracker alert. Andy.
You know, this all went down very quickly on Monday as the Cheatham middle school teacher was arrested. She was also fired.
The investigation into Mia King begins with an anonymous tip to the Cheatham County Narcotics Unit. The caller alleges,
oh, she doesn't look like the kind that would do drugs. And what in the fuck is the deal with the logo for that narcotics union? Or narcotics unit.
To the Cheatham County Narcotics Unit. The caller alleges the 6th grade English teacher has been using drugs at school.
That during her lunch break would go out to her.
It was apparently cocaine.
Use, come back and teach class afterwards.
Cheatham County SROs go to the 24-year-old's classroom. Officials say there are no children there at the time. According to investigators, when the deputy looks into King's open purse, he finds 3 baggies, 2 of which test positive for cocaine. Investigators will also seize a Coke spoon and a rolled up $5 bill. When drug agents interview Miss King, who began with the school system in 2023, they determine that she's under the influence.
Gotta be shocking.
It is very shocking. You know, she's trusted with our kids, supposed to be in there teaching, but to have, you know, a dangerous drug such as cocaine in her classroom, yeah.
Now, but if it was a prescription for like Adderall or something, she'd be good to go.
It's shocking.
Is there any indication or any belief that maybe children had some access to this?
No, not at this time. We don't have any reason to believe that. We think that she was using it for personal use.
King is arrested on the drug charges, and she bonds out of jail.
Hello.
Hey, Miss King, Andy Cordan with News 2. How are you today? By phone Tuesday morning.
You sure? Nothing to the kids or anything else?
She tells me politely. She has no comment.
I hate this happened. I feel sorry for the young lady. I know she probably ruined her whole career, you know, in one day, but that doesn't change the fact that we have a zero tolerance policy in our schools, and we're not backing away from that for anybody. School teachers, police officers, nobody.
And Mia King is charged with possession of drugs, paraphernalia, and public.
I like how the chat is like, you know, I totally get it. 6th graders are hard to deal with. I just feel like if she had been prescribed legal fucking cocaine, nothing would have happened to her.
Intoxication. Now, as I mentioned, the school system has fired her. She has no prior disciplinary issues in her personnel file. Send it back to you, Haley.
Thank you, Andy. The Cheatham County School System sent us a statement today that reads in part, the safety and well-being of our students is one of our top priorities, and we are committed to maintaining a safe and supportive environment for all students.
I've got to grind up a little more for this next story. Let me get ready because we're gonna have to smoke. Oh, I'm sorry, Avalon. I'm not into speed drugs. I don't know what I'm talking about. So, I mean, I don't know what I'm talking about with a lot of things. But specifically, I don't know shit about speed drugs. I'm already, that's what I had the program director at a radio station one time was like, you don't think that when you come in here, bounce off the walls, I know you're on something? And I was like, bro, you've got it backwards. When I'm bouncing off the walls, I'm completely sober. When I'm acting normal, I'm on something. So yeah, I never really did a lot of speedy drugs because I'm speedy anyway. But I got off, it was a quiet day. I remember it so vividly. It was like a Tuesday. I don't remember if it was spring or if it was fall, but it was gorgeous. It was like 75, 80 degrees, and it was quiet. The news wasn't doing that much that day. I was the news director of 9 radio stations, and just like rarely did a day come along where I had so little to do. Nothing. There was no major court case I was watching. There wasn't, some political scandal or anything. It's a beautiful fucking day outside. It was a Tuesday. I remember it was a Tuesday because my buddy was off on like Monday, Tuesday. He worked at Olin Mills. So it's a Tuesday, it's a nice day, and my weed dealer had cocaine. And I just happened to I messaged my buddy sometime during the day or something hey, I don't have anything to do. I can pre-record my afternoon news and get off work early. Because I go in at fucking 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm salary as the news director. So, rare day, nothing is going on. I don't have some fucking suit and tie affair I need to go to at night. I'm stealing it from Maynard James Keenan. He says cocaine. So I get some blow, and once again, beautiful fucking day. I just so calm and everything. I record if I remember how it happened, like I had to do like an in-studio appearance at 3:30, and I would talk to the afternoon dude, the afternoon jock, and like say what was coming up on the news at 4 and 5, and then I'd also do it again at 4:30. But if I remember how I did it, like I pre-recorded my 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock news, I hit the 3:30 and went in and talked with the jock, but recorded my 4:30, so I get off at like 3:45, 3:50 or something, go home, beautiful goddamn afternoon. My neighbor comes over, and like he knows I'm into all kinds of things. I'm sitting there with my buddy Jason at the time. He dead now, but he wasn't my buddy when he died either. But we had gotten the cocaine, and I offered my neighbor some, and he's like, no, and he just thought I was doing like a pain pill or something. He didn't know I was on cocaine. So we're doing lines. It's probably about 4:30, 5 o'clock, something like that. We're having a grand old time, and my work cell phone goes off, and it's the radio station, and I ignore it. My personal cell phone goes off, and it's the radio station, and I ignore it. My beeper goes off, because this was like 2006. I had a beeper. My beeper goes off, and I'm like, oh God, I can't ignore it. Something has happened. So I go into the bedroom. I take the phone call. It's the program director from the radio station. He tells me that a state trooper was on his way to blah, 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 and was doing like 90 miles an hour, spun out, and died. And that I needed to go get the radio station van and be the first person on the scene like I always was. And I was like, okay. And he so vividly, he was like, are you okay to drive right now? I was like, yeah, I can do it. So I go up and I get the radio station van. It's like dusk by this time that I'm getting back to the radio station. So I've like done several rails of cocaine. I'm driving to a crash scene where there's going to be a shit ton of cops. But like the entire time I'm going there, I'm like, I'm in the radio station van. They're not suspecting. I'm not a suspect in anything. They all know me. They know who I am and why I'm there. If I just play it cool, they're all they just lost their buddy. They're not gonna be like, all and it's true. God, they were all like crying on me and shit. It was wild. Radio guys are weird anyway. I loved radio, and I mean, this is radio now, right? This is why I'm here. I always wanted to do exactly the kind of show I'm doing now. I'm sorry there wasn't more to it. Like the cops were slamming me up against a car or something. No, everything went great. I got a really good story, and I went back to my apartment and did the rest of my cocaine. I do have some fucking crazy stories, though. We had a really bad drug problem in mid-2000s, right? I'm in eastern Kentucky. And fair enough, P.P. Jackson, yeah. No, here's the thing about me, is I get myself into some crazy situations, and somehow, some way, just everything always works out for me. Like, I understand how people believe in some kind of a higher power. There's some kind of God controlling shit, because it feels like somebody's watching out for me. Anonymously, good evening. I forgot the story I was going to tell this time. I was getting ready to like, oh, you want a crazy one? Oh, okay. I am, so I'm like 19, right? When I'm the news director of 9 radio stations. I'm 19 years old, maybe 20. And I had been flirting with this girl. I had went to high school with her now. She was like a senior, okay, so she's like 17 or 18. I'm 19 or 20. It feels weird because I'm news director of 9 radio stations and I'm like flirting around with this girl. So it's Friday night and I go over to whatever house that, like, she's at some friend's house and they're having like a big house party and there's all these people from her friends from high school and shit. There's like 30 of them there. And, like, she and I, like, we're over in a corner or whatever and shit. And, like, I try to get her to go back to... My apartment's, like, 2 minutes away from this house. I keep trying to get her to go back to my apartment. And I end up staying the night there with her in the corner of this fucking... Like, it was a giant-ass fucking bedroom. That was Friday night, you know. And my truck, I had a red Toyota Tacoma. My truck had been parked in the driveway that night. So I go on about my business. On Sunday night, I get a call from what's called the Unite Drug Task Force. And this is the way they always... When they were going to do a gigantic bust, and they always wanted the media to be there. I usually did ride-alongs with them. So when they were going to go do, like, bust 50 drug dealers, they never actually busted drug dealers. They busted users. They would call me the night before because, you know, you can't give... I called all my friends to let them know a big bust was coming the next day, right? So they tried to give the press as little time as they could because somebody like me is actually on the side of the drug dealers. But they called me on Sunday night and told me, like, hey, meet blah, blah, blah here. And they don't even, like, say, you know, we're doing this bust. It's meet here, blah, blah, blah. And you know what that means. So I call all my friends and everything. The next morning I go to the radio station. I'm bad about not being on time for things, and I didn't meet at the time I was supposed to go on the ride-along for the bust. But, like, I know the communications officers and everything. Like, 'cause I've been doing this a while. And I call up the communications office. They tell me where the bust is, like where they're at on their route. So I can go and catch up with them. I can take my pictures for the newspaper, get a sound bite and everything. So I go and I find them, and they're at the house that I was at on Friday. Apparently busting the parents of whatever kid had invited the girl that I was flirting with over. So, and I'm not with the cops in the cop car doing a ride along. I'm in my fucking truck that I had been there in the Friday before. So, like, I, like, get out, take some pictures real fast. I don't even think I got a sound bite or anything. I just got the fuck out of there as quickly as I could. I was at a drug dealer's house one time. I was wearing, like, it was a Dare shirt. It was, like, airbrushed, and it had, like, the cruiser, the local sheriff's department, and it was, like, blah, 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 county sheriffs, blah. You know, clearly, I'm wearing this as a fucking joke, right? Because I get shit like this working at the radio station. So I am at a drug dealer's house purchasing... I was really bad off on pills and pot, who knows what else at the time. So I'm buying all kinds of party favors. And somebody walks in and flips the fuck out thinking I'm a cop. And the dealer's like, no, this is Justin. He's super cool, super cool. I'd always bring him, he would trade me, he'd throw in like extra pills or extra pot or something if I'd give him movie passes. And, you know, for a while at the radio station, we got movie passes like they're goddamn candy. So I'd just be bringing him like fucking 8 movie passes. And he had me bringing movie passes one day because he said he had a hot date. He was taking out a hot date. And this is an old... fugly redneck dude. He could barely talk because he had chain smoked his all. Like, we're talking like real. I shouldn't really be passing judgment, but you kind of a very gruff man. If you saw him in an alleyway, you might walk a little bit further away from him. So I'm there with him, bring him some movie passes. I get whatever my stuff is. He tells me he's got a hot date. In walks the girl that was the goddamn homecoming queen at my high school. Not the year I graduated, but the year before that. Like in Battle of Possums class. And like my jaw hit, like she was like one of the most popular girls in my school. And like my jaw hit the floor. I'm like, are you gonna fuck her? Serious? It's amazing what pills in your pocket can do in Eastern Kentucky. I'm sorry, I went on a storytelling spree. We're towards the end of the show, so we're kind of in the bullshit news section. I feel like I did my duty. I feel like I did my duty in presenting you the news for the night. A woman in Ohio said her order of chicken fries from Burger King came with several buds of marijuana. Aw, I love telling stories, Oregon gal. I like to make it a good mix. I don't want anybody to get bored. TikTok user Janabama posted this video after visiting on Sunday.
Burger King tonight. Listen, I need you guys to listen. Got my kids some chicken fries. This bag came. If you look down in there, you can see some residue. She got her chicken fries. Chicken fries with the side of... Do you see that? You can't say that on here. Mary Jane.
You can't say marijuana?
From Burger King in Hamilton, Ohio.
This could be...
Okay, went to Burger King tonight. Listen.
I am skeptical of everything on TikTok, everything on the internet. I mean, why are you getting on TikTok to talk about it? Oh.
This is how legends.
Oh, now we see. I mean, I had a pot dealer that worked for the pizza place, the local pizza place. Luckily for me, it was my favorite pizza place he worked for. And he would bring us food. Like, even if, like, we just ordered pot from him, he would, like, bring us, especially if I was with my friend Molly. Being with Molly helped a lot. He'd bring us, dipping cheese sticks and shit. Bring us some wings. Miller Management, the management company for Burger King located in Hamilton, told the Cincinnati Enquirer they are very disappointed to learn of the incident and do not take the incidents that put our guests in danger lightly. Put your guests in danger? Miller Management said that the employee involved was fired. The manager of the Burger King location told WXIX he did not want to comment. The police department says they did not receive a report from the customer. The sergeant with the department said they are investigating and will release additional information if it becomes available. She looked like a Karen, and apparently she was a hardcore MAGA. So I don't believe her. We're going to be finding out if an old mystery will be uncovered with the sale of this next property. And I bet it has something to do with that bitch Carol Baskins.
Thank you, Jeff. During the pandemic, the place known as Big Cat Rescue became widely known because of the series Tiger King. Well, now there are reports that Carol Baskin and her husband Howard are selling the property to make way for condos and apartments. But for years, some have wondered if the property holds dark secrets and the remains of Carol Baskin's second husband, Don Lewis. News Channel 8's Jeff Patterson joins us live from near Big Cat Rescue to look into that part of the story. Only this story could potentially...
I only know of this from memes. I never watched it.
Jen, well, there are a lot of plot twists here. Big Cat Rescue was once located just down this gravel road behind me. The big cats have all been sold and relocated to a sanctuary in Arkansas. Now, the 56 acres behind me is set to be developed into condominiums and apartments. The question is, will investigators now have an opportunity to finally excavate here and look for the remains of Don Lewis, who's been missing for years? Big Cat Rescue became infamous during the Netflix series Tiger King. Joe Exotic, the man at the center of the series, is still in prison for attempting to hire people to kill his arch rival, Carol Baskin.
This whole thing was blown out of proportion on me and Carol to make a Netflix show.
In an interview from jail, Joe told me he believes Carol killed her ex-husband, Don Lewis, and he didn't hold back on his thoughts about Carol.
Hey, I still think she's crazy and she killed her husband.
Now, for the first time in years, investigators may have a chance to examine the property where Big Cat Rescue was.
Why is he locked up again?
Former Hillsborough County State Attorney Chris Castillo is now in private practice and handles criminal defense cases and civil litigation. He says before now, it would have not been easy for detectives to obtain a search warrant to get access to the property.
Could Joe turn you gay? With the promise of access to big kitties?
In any case, you have to evidence to the court probable cause to be able to obtain a search warrant.
Castillo says just because people believe Carol killed Don Lewis is not enough for the courts to grant a warrant.
Just mere speculation or conjecture or rumor is not enough to establish probable cause.
Joe Exotic has said in the past he believes Don's remains are in a septic tank buried on the property. Chris Castillo says even if detectives get access to the property, it will be very difficult for them to obtain evidence of a murder.
In the septic tank?
Missing persons report was filed with the sheriff's office years and years ago. And so even if there was some evidence at the time that Mr. Lewis went missing that existed in that septic tank, there is a probability or possibility that it may no longer exist in that location.
Attorney Chris Castillo says detectives will not have to obtain a warrant to search this property if they obtain permission to search it from the new property owners. And coming up at 6 o'clock, we'll hear from Castillo about why he thinks that is possible. But we will also hear from a man who doesn't think Carol Baskin murdered her husband, Don Lewis. He worked with Carol Baskin and her husband, Howard, for years. That's at 6. Reporting Hillsborough County, Jeff Patterson, 8 on your side.
It's a wild tale. I mean, as if I don't get enough wild tales doing this show. That's all this show is about. We haven't checked in with him here in a month or two, so let's do it. I might have done it for Christmas. Let's check in with everybody's favorite puppy boss. If YouTube will cooperate.
Thank you for riding with Mo Mountain Bus. You guys like a complimentary treat with your bus ride?
Of course they would.
We have Wesson.
Hey, Wesson.
Hold that hole. Mika.
Niga.
Slade.
Is it Slade?
Daisy.
Oh, Daisy.
Big Louie.
Louie was licking his lips. Licked them paws.
Lila.
Oh, Lila.
Chantrell.
Hey, Moggs, it said this was their big dogs, but Amaru was a big dog. Oh, help him get it.
I had a feeling she wasn't going to eat her treat.
Oh.
Little first day jitters.
Yeah, she was a little shy, and she didn't take any treats while we were trading.
Oh.
That's why I was trying to give it to all the other dogs first, hoping that maybe she would be like, what are they eating? Snack?
What snack?
Maybe? Please stay in your seats till we get to your house.
Oh my gosh.
Yourself.
That big tongue.
The aisles. Daisy, you are sitting in the emergency exit. Are you willing and capable of offering?
Daisy, don't pull a Khabib Nurmagomedov. Be sure to acknowledge that you will help people in the event of an emergency.
Putting the pups in a remote chance of an emergency? Thank you for your service.
Oh.
And welcome aboard Mo Mountain Mutts. Chevelle. Thank you for riding.
Daisy totally agreed.
You guys like a complimentary treat with your bus ride? Up front here we have Wesson. Swallow that whole.
I bet Weston is such a good boy.
Slade. Daisy. Big Louie.
For some reason, I'm a glutton for punishment. I'm going to be here yet again tomorrow morning.
Lila.
I don't know why I do these things to myself.
Chantrell.
Tomorrow is Pam Bondi. Confirmation hearing to be Attorney General.
I had a feeling she wasn't going to eat her treat.
Little first day jitters.
Yeah, she was a little shy, and she didn't take any treats while we were trading. That's why I was trying to give it to all the other dogs first, hoping that maybe she would be like, what are they eating? Snack? Maybe? Please stay in your seats till we get to your
Let's
house.
go visit one of our comrades from up north. Around 8:15, 8:30, somewhere around there, holiday. Eastern time.
The exit. Are you
If
willing?
you're watching on Twitch, you're going to head over to Maple Takes.
Emergency. Thank you for your service.
Go ahead, light one up, tip one back. It's all right to have a little fun before you hit the sack. I'm JustinFREAKIN. We'll see you tomorrow morning on the Troll Patrol, live.